I just spent 2 months making the train car from Resident Evil Outbreak, and it's the greatest thing I've ever made. Hey y'all, so I made the iconic umbrella train car because Outbreak is top tier in my brain. So let's make it and escape Raccoon City together. I like this Lego wagon wheel, but it's too big, so let's make one from scratch, using my favorite crafting combo, UV resin and silicone mold putty. I took a mold of the wagon wheel, but only the spoke thingies. I added the resin, and after I cured it, I had 1/4 of a wheel. Next I used this mold made out of cheese to create a circle bit, and here's a high IQ move, put them together so you can bake them at the same time. In a blink I had the same wagon wheel as before, but slightly smaller. Next I took this circle drill bit and used it on this heavy duty plastic, more on that later, to create this perfect circle.
Perfection.
I glued the two pieces together, and it was looking good, but it needed to be more thicker, so I added some more circle bits and thin plastic to fill it out. And why not a bead for good measure? For the axle, I'm going to use the inner part of a pencil. I attached the two wheels, and we had one axle. I duplicated two more, and the wheels were suddenly done. The frame is up next, and I get to introduce you to the piece of plastic that inspired the whole build. These plastic rope holders can be found at the dollar store, and I got a ton of them, but what happened to all the rope, I wonder? I hear a gremlin. What you do with all the rope, Kawaii? Nothing illegal, right? Back to the build, I chopped up the plastic in the shape I wanted, and it was ready for the wheels, but after I drilled holes for them, I found a big problem. Yeah, I can't slip the axles on.
There's no turning back now.
I didn't want to cut up the axle, so the frame got axed instead. I glued on some foam as a filler piece, then I went ahead and filled in the bottom with all manner of random junk, from crafting foam to beads and even some wire, all for the detail that no one will ever see, but as I said, I'm selling this, so I spared no expense in time nor effort to put as much detail as possible, even in places no one will ever see. Moving on, I covered up the foam with scrap plastic, and it was ready for the train chassis. To spare no expense, I bought this heavy-duty plastic. It's thick and very hard to cut. It took me about an hour to cut in the front windows alone, but it was worth it because it's high-quality material. I glued each piece together using hot glue, and it still needs some more plastic, but my hands hurt from cutting this stuff, so I switched over to making the engine. I really like this toy car windshield that was left over from my Dreadnought Titan build. I think it will pair nicely with this Lego windshield, so I glued them together, then I attached it to the body. Once that was together, the whole thing got glued. My hands have recovered, so let's use some more of that heavy-duty plastic, but this time, some purple stuff. I glued on the sides and then the roof. Next I felt like making a door, so that's what I did next, and it was pretty simple. Plastic, trim, doorknob, little window, done. Next I quickly laid some trim to hide some nasty edges that were bothering me. Since I'm making this all up as I go along, let's suddenly switch back to the engine and build the exhaust tube thing. I of course use mostly Legos because I just love desecrating them. Even back when I was a kid, which means I was the real life Sid from Toy Story. But my fashion is much better than his. After looking up some train images, I noticed that the wheels have this stupid looking thing on them. So I made something like it using whatever I had on my desk at the time. Let's make some railing. I use this Warhammer sprue for most of it because it has these nice circle shapes baked in. And why limit this powerful crafting material to just railing? Let's use it for stairs. And how about a ladder too? Actually, I'm bored with this stuff. Let's go back to desecrating Legos to make the bumper. I added these weird looking springs because I had an idea that they would hold the bumper in place, but also let it move like a real one. No, that was a stupid idea. Next I added this awning thing above the back door. Ignore the thing on the right because shortly after it disappeared, never to be seen again. What happened to it? I made these little electrical boxes out of cross-stitch canvas and some thin plastic, and I wanted to add them to the train car. So I did. Let's talk windows. Originally I was going to use these budget windows made from cross-stitch canvas and UV resin, but they're booty cheeks. So I made another one with better plastic. Then I took a mold of it so I could have unlimited windows. As for the two side windows, I wanted to use this wire mesh that came from a cooking pot. And that looking good. I added the side windows, but I'll attach the front windows later. I didn't like how these plastics were sitting on the engine, so I mixed up some homemade gap filler and filled them in. After it dried, the train car was more or less done, but it looks quite naked without rivets. Now, I didn't show every rivet because my 2011 Dell laptop couldn't edit it. Yes, this 15-year-old ancient piece of technology is what I use to make videos. Now that the rivets are done, let's do some last-minute detailing like adding the numbers, which is 179, or at least that's all I can see in this reference picture. But what about the other side? Next, I glued the front windows into place. I intended to do this after painting, but let's just do it now. I placed clear tape behind each window for two reasons, the first being to hold them into place as the glue dried, and the second reason being to hold the UV resin, but more on that after painting. The train car is done and ready for paint, but let's quickly switch over to making the base. Up first are the guardrails that sit on either side of the train car, and after a bunch of stupid math, I made this template to follow, and I used the rope plastic from before. Seriously, Kawaii, what did you do with all the rope? I added the foam base and then filled out the overall shape with wood. Next, I wrapped crafting foam around all the joints. Then I covered up some ugly edges with some bamboo sticks, and it was done. But you know what it needs? Yeah, rivets. Next, I wanted to use more of this heavy-duty plastic for the base, and I even had enough to do so. But I noticed this warp in the plastic, and I think it's just part of how it was manufactured, but I can't use it. I broke the clippy bit off and cut it to size. Then I added the train rails. Then I glued on the guardrails. The last thing I added was the backstop, and yes, it lines perfectly with the rails. Okay, construction done, and what a joy it was. Let's paint this beautiful mess. I started with a black primer, then the rust came. I used a dark brown first, then layered it with a burnt sienna. Next, let's cover up all that nice rust with a dark metallic dry brush. Once that was done, it was time to bring in the main star of this whole video, yellow. I used the classic don't paint the edge method when I applied the yellow. And this is what it looked like after one coat. 3 coats later, it was done. Next, I used red and white to paint the hazard strip on the bumper. With the same white, I quickly painted the numbers. Next, I brought back the dark silver metallic and gave it a real dry brushing to blend all the colors together. The last thing I did was give each rivet a kiss of silver metallic to help each one pop. With the painting done, I wanted to add the lights, starting with the main one. I took apart this broken solar light because I wanted this little sensor bulb. Why? Because it fits perfectly right here. As for the red lights, I used red gel nail polish. I filled the windows with UV resin to create the glass, and the clear tape is doing its job holding the resin in place nicely. Okay, before we can call it done, I added this umbrella sign, just because I wanted to. Why not? Train car done. And as you can see, the base was painted off camera by the Mikus. Good job, little gremlins. Alright, roll those beauty shots. As I mentioned earlier, I'm selling this along with a few other things I've made. Why? Well, you've seen the problem already. Yes, I wasn't joking about using a 2011 Dell laptop to edit all my crafting videos. It's obviously on its last legs, and once it's gone, well... yeah, no more channel. So that is why I'm selling my beloved Outbreak Train Car. If you love it as much as I do, you can purchase it now at my eBay shop. But if you can't help out in that way, a like, subscribe, and a comment helps out as well. As always, I thank you for watching. Be kind, rewind, and I'll see you in the next one.